a lot better after the break. You're looking across the board here, first in a lot of these different stats, dominant early game in the 2 games last week. This was the expectation that was had for them. They did come out really hot in the first week or 2 of the LCS. They looked really good, but then they went on this big losing streak, and they've been trying to kind of fix things from then. We've heard a lot of different interviews talking about, well, we didn't really agree on the way to play the game, on how we should play the game, and they feel like they've got things a lot more ironed out now.
And it's important now that we're in this second Super Week of the regular split to remember the previous Super Week was part of the Cloud9 mid-split crash and burn. It was a 0-3. Nobody expected that from the team that these guys are, but that's what we got. C9, they had a poll yesterday on Twitter asking what they should play today. Highest response, they would lock it in. I said Skarner. Yo, thank you, buddy. I appreciate that. Hell yeah. Well, Cloud9 was supposed to play it because I was the top response, but then they just tweeted at me earlier and said, no, we actually aren't going to do that.
Yeah, I remember when Busio told me he was going to pick Pyke too.
Yeah, we just got a lot of bamboozling going on here in the LCS, but let's go ahead, check in where we're at. It was Karma first pick for Dig. It's Lucian Nami for C9 as Milio Sivir is the lock-in here for Dignitas.
Sivir and 2 enchanters. It's a Sivir comp, baby. We're going late. We got to talk mid-gap. That's going to be the question. Azir is disabled on this patch.
Big.
And different teams, we got some different Azir benefiters here. Jojo was 4-0 on the pick this season, have been looking really good on it. Played it both as Grasp, that Showmaker build last week, and the standard build. And we've seen Jensen and APA play it quite a lot. Jojo is very flexible, but I'm going to be curious to see what they try to slot in as the replacement, because Azir is very unique in that you can have push and dominate lane, you can stay safe from ganks, you can be a playmaker, you can be incredibly high DPS. If you play that champion at the highest level, it kind of just does everything, and I don't think that there is any champion that is a one-to-one replacement for it in the game.
Absolutely. There's a reason why it's so popular. I mean, I'm personally excited that he's disabled because it's going to spice up the mid lane a lot, but for players like Jojo who are able to pilot it well.
Bros.
No, it's just...
Isn't Skarner from Shrima?
Yeah, but, you know, he doesn't... They're not on the same... No, Skarner's got his own problems, all right? He's not worried about this chicken empire stuff. That's not what he's about. But back to Jojo, he's not exactly somebody who's going to be super limited by Azir disappearing. It's not like he's a one-trick, but it's still, like you're talking about, something that slots into any comp. And I feel like it means that everybody else on C9 is also going to have to find more of that coherent identity if you don't have something that does everything like Azir does.
And you need consistent damage from somewhere, right?
Yeah.
This is not a missed ban from Cloud9. This is a visual bug. It was Volibear. For some reason, the icon is not showing up, so that was a Volibear ban as the 4th ban for Cloud9. We will continue onward as normal. That's why we're seeing the 5th ban highlighted here now for Cloud9, and that is going to be Jax. I wonder if we're going to see some more Renekton duty for Fudge when that got buffed. He even tweeted out Renekton buff, back on the croc. Immediately played it with that Nidalee Renekton comp. They did really well with that. It's going to be a fun one. It is the Lucian Nami here for Berserker and Vulcan, which you obviously touched on earlier, but something that has not done very well in the LCS. And it's also something that Berserker and Vulcan themselves have sometimes been struggling on. Generally is a comp where you're expected to do a lot better in the lane.
Yeah.
It can be tough to really navigate the mid game, the late game. Yone, talked about, it was on Pros, I believe, how he thought this comp is really based around the mid game and controlling the mid wave. He feels that that is kind of the biggest spike for Lucian Nami, is how they can dominate the mid lane, how they can really control that mid wave and make it very difficult for the opponents to access mid wave, to be able to get out to those side lanes. But it's going to be Yone locked in for Jojo, so a spicy pick here. They're very heavy on AD, I will say. A tank could slot in here pretty nicely in the top lane for Dig, stack up some armor and potentially look to punish this unless Fudge has some sort of a spicy AP pick. This, of course, could also be a Yone top. We have to remember it could be flex up to top, and then Jojo could grab an AP mid. But so far, it is very heavy AD for Cloud9.
Right, we're expecting both the Karma and the Yone to be mid, but both champions still do have the possibility of flexing up to top if either squad really has something up their sleeve. But no, the Croc will be locked in for Rich and for Dignitas. That does mean Karma is going mid. What will be that jungle move here for eXyu? Remember, back in the very start of the draft, we began with 5 marksman bans, and the only one that wasn't a marksman was that Vi banned out by C9, keeping it away from eXyu. And now with the second half of the draft targeting the Volibear, the Jax, let's see what they want. It's Sejuani. There's your front line, there's your tank, there's your armor stacking. It's not coming from the top lane, it's coming from the jungle.
Yeah, we'll have to see exactly where they are going to go. Sejuani, you know, that pairing with the Croc, really, really strong. Udyr, definitely an option here. So Udyr going to get locked in, so it should be Yone mid. It will be Udyr top. He could go a splash into, you know, into some sort of these AP builds. Or excuse me, is it? Yeah, it is going to be locked in. So Udyr is going to be locked in. So he could be going a little bit into AP if he wanted. You know, if he wanted to go things like Leandries and stuff. So many people will do that. Generally in the LCS, we've been seeing, you know, full tank Udyr, which isn't really going to force you to build any MR, but I'll be interested to see, because he's with all these physical damage dealers, if he's going to build a little bit of AP. Otherwise, definitely the Sejuani could get some value stacking up that armor. And if you do have one of these armor stacking tanks with 2 enchanters behind them, that gives them even more value, making it a lot more difficult to actually be able to punch through that front line. But Cloud9 has some decent dive, have some decent mid game. I'm just going to be interested to see how this goes if it goes late, because I do feel like Dignitas has a lot of power, a lot of protection for this Sivir.
So, looking at both of them, who do you give the edge to? Who do you like better in the head-to-head?
I mean, I just feel like Dignitas' draft is a lot easier to play, and I do think there's a lot of value in that. Cloud9 definitely has some playmaking tools here, and I'm going to be interested to see if they can get that advantage early, because if they can get that advantage early, if they can be the ones stacking up those dragons, they can dictate the pace of the game, and I definitely think they can take over from there. But Dignitas, clear win conditions, they want to look to 5v5, they want to look to go late, and I think their comp is going to really excel if they can do it.
I'm excited for it, man. 5-6 versus 6-5. Cloud9, a team that everybody was predicting to win the split back when we were just about ready to jump into week number 1. Dignitas, a squad that people were expecting to be fighting for a shot to even make it into playoffs. If they do manage to lock themselves a playoff spot here, it'll be the first time in a while that DIG manages to get playoffs back to back. Would be pretty awesome for them. So many different expectations for the players on these teams, but now let's see how they kick off this Super Week and how this one's gonna go.
It's gonna be a good one here. It is Barrier and Heal down on the bot lane for DIG, and it is PTA Sivir. Not something that I've seen a tremendous amount, but obviously you do have the auto attack reset with the W. In the past, we always see you know, lethal tempo generally, but PTA obviously a lot more kind of upfront burst. It can help in these short trades. If you think that you are going to be just looking for these trades, if Lucian's dashing in, auto W auto, you know, you can get that PTA proc and maybe be able to trade back a little bit more evenly.
And I like having Milio as a lane partner with the Sivir too, because we think about wanting enchanters with hyper carries, but also just specifically what he offers with the cozy campfire, giving you the bonus range. Sivir's always been one of the champions who her shorter range is one of the things that's the intended weakness. Buffer up with the campfire. You can fire those ricocheting boomerangs all through everybody, and it really plays into that 5v5 style that you were talking about, DIG being able to aim for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you have that protection that allows you to really get in the mix of things as well. You're getting speed ups here from Milio and from Karma potentially. And it is not going to be Comet Karma, it is Airy. I'll be interested to see, you know, where he's going to go as far as the builds go. But as much as this, you know, on paper you see, it's Cloud9 versus DIG, of course, Cloud9 are massive favorites. Well, the stats tell a little bit of a different story. So we're going to ask you in chat, guess the team. Which stats belong to which team? It's not so clear as you would think. You know, the record's actually very close between these two teams, and both teams have performed, you know, relatively similarly throughout the season. So we're going to check back on this in a couple minutes. Get your votes in chat. See if you guys know which team is which. And no cheating. Don't look it up. Did you know who's who?
No, man, I'm really bad with numbers stuff. I can't read. It's a little bit tougher for me. That's why we're gonna trust the experts.
Scorpions don't need to read.
Twitch chat. Exactly. It's just not required. But Berserker and Vulcan going to be pushed back underneath the turret here early on. And I do want to go back to what you mentioned in the draft. When you see Lucian and Nami locked in, you're expecting lane dominance, you're expecting priority, you're expecting a lead heading into the mid game so that Lucian can play aggressively and transfer that to the rest of the map, right?
Yeah, exactly. You know, you want to be able to get that trade in where you're chunking them down and you're winning out on the HP, but so far it's Tomo and Isles pushing them in. They have shove here with the Sivir. You know, sometimes it can be difficult to win those trades as the Lucian Nami because Sivir is just going to hit the wave and shove it in constantly. You're getting poked away at by these ricochets as well, and when the wave clear is that heavy on the Sivir side, well, if you're just locked under your turret, then you're trading into these big minion waves as well, which is going to make it more and more difficult. And there's decent sustain from the Milio with that cozy campfire as well, so that's going to make things pretty tough. Dove here having push in mid, as you would expect.
Yep.
Jojo obviously starting with that door and shield, and I'm curious if he's resolved secondary. I would expect him to be, and he is. He does have second wind. That's kind of the norm when you are playing these tough ranged versus melee matchups.
Yeah.
But Dove doesn't really want to interact. Again, he just wants push. He just wants to keep him locked in under his turret and say, you know what, you're going to be stuck farming minions. I'm going to be the one to prio. I'm going to be the one who can move and help my jungler, and we're going to use that to help us dictate the pace of the game.
And Dignitas does look towards that enemy jungle. This bottom side here, though, has already been cleared out. Blaber has made sure that he's swiftly dispatched all the camps. It's going to be the Scuttle Crabs traded on opposite ends of the river as both our junglers decide to take their first recalls before really getting involved in the lanes. Now, top side, though, is the kind of spot we haven't really touched on yet. The Udyr versus Renekton matchup. Renekton getting buffs. He's always one of those champions that once he's at what the pros consider an acceptable level, you're just going to see him all over the place, right?
Exactly. I mean, he's so reliable. They are so comfortable on this champion. You know, people have played it a million times. So it does become one of those defaults where people are going to look towards it constantly. Fudge has TP'd back here pretty early on. Udyr really known for that strong early laning. Jojo potentially in a little bit of trouble as he's going to get tethered back up, but he has not yet TP'd back to lane, so he's just trying to clear out this wave, get the best possible buy that he can, and Vulcan is here to cover, knowing that Dove had already TP'd back. There's not enough minions there for any sort of a freeze or anything for Jojo to worry about, so he'll be able to get a pretty good base, and he does have 1,200 gold in pocket, so can get a nice buy. And we'll see what that's going to be. You know, a lot of people generally on Yone, you're just going to look for tier 2 bursts. It's so valuable. The Q cooldown scales with your attack speed, going to be able to sidestep some of these skill shots potentially as well from that Karma.
Jojo also min-maxing his recall spot there, making sure he's in the right spot where Dove would not be able to hit him with the Mantra-empowered Inner Flame to stop the back. Blaber jumping in after Dove here. Jojo has joined up in the fight. Important to note, Jojo not level 6, but they got more men coming into the fight. As Fudge makes his entry in, Blaber's trying to grab the first blood. It goes over to Fudge, and Blaber won't drop. Dove's under pressure, and Fudge is still after him. The Karma's trying to kite it away, using the power of the shield to stay alive. Fudge forces out another flash as Dove burns to death inside the Glacial Storm. Fudge turns it into a 2-0 game, but Rich wants to get something, anything back. The Ruthless Predator to stun up Jojo, but they're going to outplay him, or are they? The damage is not quite enough. Dig are still trying to make this work as Rich wants to run. Fudge in hot pursuit once again. Rich needs a little more damage. Slice and dice, but it will not work. Fudge is on a killing spree. 3-0 Udyr.
It's Dignitas for dinner. Fudge is cooking him up on the Udyr. Makes the early roam, and that made all the difference as Cloud9 is just piling in. eXyu starting up this Grubs on the top side. Blaber just charges straight in. Jojo there on the roam wasn't 6, so this could have been even worse for Dig. eXyu has to flash out, but the early ghost popped by Fudge allowed him to close the gap. He realizes, I'm not getting out, so he tries to turn around and looks for the kill there onto Blaber. You can see Fudge constantly swapping stances, charges up that Unleash with that passive bar, Unleash Phoenix stance, gets it back in on him, then in goes Rich, and I thought this was going to be Rich just going down for free, but was able to turn it around here, gets a big heal off the empowered Q with the ulti ticking, and then does a good job kiting this out to build up the rage, to wait for those cooldowns to come back up. But at the end of the day, Fudge has just enough to take him down. 3 kills for Fudge. And that's the frustration there on Rich's face. He knows how impossible that lane is going to be now.
It's so tough, man. The Udyr with Boots of Swiftness and the Warden's Mail now for that early power spike in lane. Renekton wants to be able to bully you. He wants, similar to what we were talking about with a Lucian Nami type of lane, early control that he can then turn into a lead elsewhere on the map, and it's just so tough now. Fudge, already, it's time to proxy.
Yeah, I mean, now you're just hitting a brick wall, right? But something else we have to talk about, you know, is Berserker this split. A lot of pros have not been as hot on him. This was Whippo on pros, some LCS content says Berserker is not him anymore. He was him for a while, he is not him. I feel nothing when I play against him, absolutely nothing.
Damn.
And that is pretty harsh, right? That's harsh, but that's his truth. He's speaking his truth, and you know, Berserker has got to be able to prove that he still is him, that he still has it, because it's been a pretty quiet split for Berserker.
Yeah.
Some of that you can point to, well, maybe it's meta, there's been a lot of Varus, you know, some of his best champs haven't been around as much, but, you know, he needs to be able to step up for Cloud9 and be that win condition that the Cloud9 fans know and love. Like, this is the guy where if he got to 5v5 and it was even, you're kind of just like, you know what?
They're going to win.
We're going to win.
Well, right now, he is tied in the lane with his opponent, both sitting on the same farm. No kills going either way down there. All summoner spells even still up as both supports still not quite level 6, but both getting very, very close. Lucian and Nami generally like to have that first item power spike before they really get in the spot where they feel threatening. So we'll check back in when that comes around and see if Berserker and Vulcan can really make anything happen down there, especially like we've been talking about with Jojo not being able to play one of his iconic champions in the Azir. You're looking for other people to step up. Berserker is one of those guys that you want to see do it.
Yep, absolutely. Blaber as well, you know, on a really good champ here. We have the results from the earlier poll. Chat voted that Team A was Dignitas, so they actually got it wrong. So Team A is Cloud9. They do have that slightly better early game as Tomo trying to chase out Berserker, but the stats relatively close. You know, Dignitas actually doing better than I think a lot of people would expect, just kind of based off that name recognition. But so far, so good for the bot lane as well. Tomo, you know, just been able to kind of lock Berserker and Vulcan under their tower. Blaber is here to cover. Jojo on the roam as well. This is going to get a little bit awkward now for Dignitas. They have to decide, do we actually even want to fight into this? Like, are we going to really engage on this Udyr who is so tanky?
There's no way. And I like the fact that eXyu immediately recognizes something is wrong. The fact that Fudge is willing to still just stand here, throws the control ward over the wall, sees Blaber. They know they're not going to win that 2v2 with the Udyr being as fed as he is.
Exactly. All right. So since we showed the Whippleco, we've got to give Berserker a chance to earn it back. So we've got the is the Berserker him scale here.
Okay.
And we have a scale of Raz, clearly not him, all the way up to Faker, who could be more him than Faker. And we're gonna have to dictate, and I'm gonna ask you for some help on this one as well, Flowers.
Okay.
You know, we'll be able to check back in
after the fight.
Berserker is him, exactly.
Yeah, we're gonna
if he makes a big mistake, it's going towards Raz. If he's 1v9, we're heading towards Faker Town.
If he dodges skill shots that he doesn't even see coming, it goes to the right. If he's AFK farming minions while a team fight is happening 12 feet away, he's going to the left.
Exactly. If he's ordering McDonald's and not even eating it, it's Raz.
That's how we know he is most certainly not him. All right, we'll check back in as the game goes forward. eXyu coming here into the mid lane as Jojo just uses the power of the Soul Unbound, easily snaps away from eXyu's ultimate. You gotta respect the Yone E, man. This is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful basic abilities in the entire game. And the ability to outplay with it, like unless you have everything coordinated perfectly, it's so easy for Yone to get you to waste an ult, get you to waste a summoner.
Absolutely, but TP's coming in here. They're looking to scrap. Everyone's coming in now.
Fudge is the target. They want to go after the Fed guy here first. Burst down to about 20% HP, but he's getting away as Dove is under pressure, and Jojo's looking to take the pressure into the back line. Rich still looking for Fudge. Ain't going to find him just yet, but the shutdown comes through. Jojo getting one back. It's a 1-for-1. Make it a 2-for-1. Dignitas loses their second man, and Blaber's the one putting him in the dirt. C9 once again win the fight, and the prize looks like grub.
Yeah, they do get Fudge. We have to commit so much to taking him down that Jojo's just going crazy in the back line. Uses that E, the Unbound Soul, chases after Dove, takes him down over the wall, following with the flash. It's another kill there for Jojo. It's grubs for dinner here for Blaber. If he can get both, they get to 5, which would be really, really nice. Here's the initial play, as Fudge is just kind of trying to mess with them, trying to waste their time. Dove comes in, he uses the mantra Q there onto Fudge. Rich is chasing after him. Everyone's going for this Udyr to try to finish him off, but on the other side, it's Jojo with the E, flashing over the wall, finishes off Dove. They get the kill there, and then everyone piling in to help finish off the Croc. They do grab the grubs, so they got 5, so they got the spawns on the Void Mites, and now they're looking for a dive.
C9 loves sending multiple players up here for this top lane. Fudge and Blaber, they just hand it off to Jojo. Make sure Yone's getting nice and fed early. 2-1 and 2 now on the C9 mid laner. They're up 3,000 gold as a team, closer to 2.5, I guess. Dignitas, yeah, they might have been able to grab the first couple of Drakes, but they have got to be concerned about how quickly things are getting out of control.
Yeah, you got to be worried for sure. You're hoping that Sivir, is going to be able to get stuff done for you on that bot side. It is Sivir with Static Shiv, which I know is really high win rate, but it's always kind of struck me as weird because you already have so much wave clear. It feels like you're kind of over-indexing into that. It is a very cheap item, though, so there's the benefit of kind of having that earlier first completion. but we'll have to see, how it ends up doing for him, because it is obviously, lower single target DPS, and he's going to be the one who has to get through some of these beefy frontliners. Also worth touching on the fact that Fudge is electing to go into some AP. He has the components there for Liandry's, so he's going to be grabbing that Liandry's after grabbing the early armor from the Warden's Mail. So I'm assuming it's just going to be Liandry's in a tank. I think that is more than enough to just get value from the fact that your opponents are going to be stacking armor, guaranteed.
And especially when you look at kind of how it's going to be, we talk about having these double enchanter comps and how it can work well if you're a tank. Renekton and Sejuani are always just going to be piling in, right? Their job is to be the big wall in front of the Sivir. They're right on top of the Glacial Storm daily, nightly, and ever so rightly. Fudge is getting value.
Yep, absolutely. That thing really does a lot of damage. It's slowing you down. It's burning you up. With that Liandry's, it really does hurt. It's also worth noting that Rich is going to be going, more of this aggressive style build. This is Eclipse. This is not like Sundered Sky Bruiser, Sundered Sky and Hysterics and stuff. Those kind of builds. This is a much more aggressive build. We have seen this a little bit. Dokla actually played Vayne top, and we saw an Edge of Night Rush, which I thought was really clever to be able to actually immune the Condemn against the Vayne, but that was like a lethality Renekton. This is that similar style, and it is going to mean his upfront burst is very, very high, but of course, if he gets locked down, if he gets CC'd up, you can just kind of insta-die. So he has to avoid that Udyr.
Ooh, a lot of damage coming out there from the culling, but Dignitas can keep Tomo alive. Berserker really wanted to go for the versus. The tidal wave is there for the disengage. eXyu unafraid as he's reinforced now by the shields. Cloud9 still looking for a little bit more as Berserker dashes right back to safety. Dignitas, they bring in everybody to defend as C9 are once again the ones looking for blood.
Yeah, C9 going aggressive there. They force out 3 summoners from the bot lane and both of their ults, so that is pretty big. Tomo is where a lot of the eggs are going to be. They're all kind of in on this Sivir, being able to carry in these later stages. They got to make sure that he is set up for success. Jojo just using the E, getting a nice little trade here in again. We'll take a couple tower shots as he let the root actually tether onto him. But at the same time, Blaber is already starting up the Herald. And with the Dignitas bot lane coming out of base, there's not really any chance they can contest.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what you mentioned. They lost all the summoners. They lost both ultis. Both of those ults are huge for the team fighting presence of what Dignitas' comp wants to do. So there's really no way you can say, all right, let's fight for Herald.
Exactly, and this is what Yone was talking about on Pros, where he's saying, with Lucian Nami, it's actually more about the play around mid lane. Set this duo in mid when they have their 1 items. If anyone steps up to farm, you dash in on them with the Mandate, with the Stormrazor, and you're really looking to go to town. You're looking to get these winning trades that get you cryo, that then move you to the side. So, this is one of those things where you're like, well, they kind of lost lane. Yeah, they did. They lost some plates down in the bot, but this is one of the advantages of this pick. It's not just about the 2v2. It is about that 1-item power spike and the way it allows you to play through mid. So we'll have to track in these next couple minutes, does that mid prio allow them to play towards these dragons and so on as well? Because it was the first 2 early dragons going to dig, and that is definitely something that they would love to continue stacking, and C9 wants to put a stop to.
Berserker also nearly at his 2nd item with the Stormrazor rapid fire cannon build, the Desert Eagle Lucian. You just run it 1 big shot and then you're like, okay, got to back up a little bit. Not quite the same DPS potential as a traditional crit style build, but the power of the poke, the power to kind of make these plays that you're talking about where you get control in a really quick manner.
Yeah,
really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about this dash in, this upfront damage. I've seen some really cooked Lucian builds where people...
Are we talking like good cooked or like, man, that's been in the microwave for 40 minutes?
I mean, I'll let you decide. I mean, it's this kind of build even into like Voltaic, all of the proc items essentially. Just stacking all proc items for the most upfront burst. I'm not really a big fan because it is so low DPS. You have to be really then dependent upon the rest of your team to be able to actually punch through these people. Like, someone has to kill Sejuani, right? Yeah. You do have a Kraken on the Yone, so like he's got some pretty good damage. And the hope is, I guess, that you kind of kill off Tomo and then you just go back and deal with everyone else. But either way, it is going to be a lot of upfront burst, a lot of upfront poke from Berserker. But the sustained damage with these kind of builds, especially if he does go into like a 3rd kind of bursty item, means it's going to be much lower.
Well, C9 manages to use the Herald to force down the tier 1 turret in mid. That'll be their 2nd turret of the game. Dignitas still have taken no turrets from the side of Cloud9. That bottom lane one, yeah, it's low like you were talking about because of the laning phase control from Tomo and Isles, but C9 is up 5,000 gold 17.5 minutes into the game. Dignitas has not stopped the bleeding, and Blaber can just use the wind becomes lightning with the increased range and the audacious charge, use the dragon as his
Blaber
escape.
becomes out of there.
He is gone. Jojo now also retreating as eXyu and Dove were making their way down. The Drake still mad, but still not dead. Blaber continuing controlling this as Berserker dashes over the wall. C9 has absolute dominion over the bot lane river. Dignitas knows they do not win a fight in open ground, and so they're not even going to challenge.
Yep, and now it is 5K, and I think the biggest problem by far is just Jojo. Did well, surviving the early lane, was great in these early skirmishes, picks up a couple kills. And now who's supposed to stop him in the side lane? Karma does absolutely nothing to you now that you're on the shield bow as well. He has more than enough sustain, so you can stand under your turret, but he's just going to E in, take a couple tower shots, poke you down, then heal up to full off the wave, and just rinse and repeat. Renekton also is really going to struggle in that 1v1 against him from this spot, and they could be potentially looking at a dove. Isles is sniffing it out, so is going to be down there and looking to protect Dove from that potential dive. But again, all you're going to do is be able to push the Udyr back. You're not really going to be able to threaten them, and this tower is going to go down regardless, even with 3 members from Dignitas on that bot side.
Dignitas just feels so stuck. The Udyr can't be killed.
Yeah.
Like you're talking about, Yone's interaction pattern against the solo laners that might answer him is entirely uninteractive. There's just no way, except it feels like, I don't know, 5-item Sivir. She's got Navori quick blades now, so at least she got some more cooldowns and whatever, but man, it's a mountain to climb.
So I mean, here's the problem, right? I think conceptually, what was supposed to happen for Dignitas' draft is, all right, we drafted Sejuani Renekton. That's going to win us the skirmishes on the top side, alongside this Karma, who's going to have full prio in mid lane, constantly push up this Yone. So we're going to have a strong 3-man top side that's supposed to win skirmishes. When you lose, really bad.
Berserker having to pop the cleanse immediately, now turning the calling right back on the Sejuani. Rich ready to come in from the side, but C9 just takes no damage. Yone with a nice knock up onto 2. Rich still looking to push it forward. Blaber's very low. Rich also going to be taken close to death, but not quite yet. The shields come in. Dove going for the inner flame, but he won't quite get Blaber just yet. Rich going for a recall. How in the hell did nobody die?
That was close. I mean, Tomo flashing out of there, using the barrier, using the ult. The heal comes down as well from Isles. You know, we saw not enough damage to finish anyone off from Dig, but the same is kind of true on the other side. You know, Berserker couldn't really punch through that front line. Rich getting a lot of work done going forward on that 2-item spike and really making it happen there. But yeah, I mean, Dignitas, because their top side didn't really win out in the way that they were expecting, they're now struggling in the side lanes, right? You know, the plan is you win with the top side with that 3-man squad. That buys time for Tomo. Then you show up to 5v5s and you kind of just win, right? But it hasn't really gotten there just yet. We do see, though, there is still possibilities for Dignitas if they can get that fight going just right. Cloud9, though, dictating the objectives throughout these last quite a few minutes. And they're going to be looking to dominate vision, stack up the dragons, look towards the Baron even here. And Dignitas is really just in recovery mode. They're hoping to hold on to as many of their jungle camps as they can, keep vision on objectives, see if you can find a way to get out and claim some of these objective bounties. But Jojo is just not a problem that's going to be easy to solve at any point this game.
Yeah, C9 looking strong here in their first game of Super Week. I believe that we have the information on what the rest of the week looks like for them. You already talked at the beginning of the draft about how, hey, they've got probably about the best possible remaining schedule that you could hope for. Yep. And they're starting off strong here against Dignitas, who, with how close the standings are, we talk about how it's impressive that they would be tied with C9 if they beat them in this game. But remember that everybody's pretty much within striking distance of everybody right now. If Dignitas wants to still make sure they're getting to playoffs, they got to stand tall here. C9 next to opponents, Immortals,
7th and 8th.
Shopify, exactly. C9 is in a great spot to have a really successful Super Week as eXyu and Fudge getting into a little bit of a scrap here. Fudge, the one who comes out worse for wear, as eXyu is reinforced by both of those enchanters. Berserker buffed up by Nami, looking for some damage onto Tomo, but eXyu's got to block most of it. Blaber wants to jump in. The Ultra Mega Fire Kick knocks him right back out. Dignitas still scrambling to defend. The 1v1 in bottom side. Jojo maintains the push against Rich. Exactly what you were talking about earlier. Renekton is going to struggle against the fed Yone.
Yeah, Yone just scales to infinity as well in the side lane. It gets really, really hard. Expecting it to be IE next there for Jojo, and then any squishy member is really at risk of getting 100 to 0'd from one combo from this guy. If he gets to the back line, you know, Isles is going to be toast, Tomo's going to be toast, Dove is going to be toast, so it is going to be very, very difficult. They need to find some ability to get proactive. I don't think that the solution is just sticking eXyu with Tomo and, you know, having him fish for these ults on Lucian, because even if you hit Lucian there, you just get cleansed, right? So you have to be successful with that so many times in a row for it to actually pay off. Like, you have to hit him with the ult, get the cleanse, then immediately when the CD is back up, hit him with the ult again, then be able to capitalize. So I'd almost rather see him try to look for some sort of a play in side lane, but clearly they're not confident that they can kill Jojo, so they're kind of just like waffling around mid lane, and it doesn't feel like they're really accomplishing that much.
And when we consider the flash, too, I mean, you look at Dignitas' comp, the only way you're going to catch somebody is with Sejuani's ult, unless Cloud9's asleep, right? So first ulti, if it hits, you get the cleanse. Second ulti, if it would hit, Berserker is a mechanically talented enough player, he can just flash
it, dash it.
Third ulti, the cleanse is back up now, so let's pop it again.
Yeah.
So it takes 4 ults to actually catch him.
And then maybe there's a McHale's by then.
It's just not realistic.
It's really, really hard, right? And I wouldn't have an issue with them kind of just being in this more conservative spot if they were farming equally, but they're not. They're losing jungle camps constantly, right? And that's why we've seen, just over these last couple minutes, the gold lead has extended from 5K to now 6.4K, right? It's getting worse and worse. You know, if you control 2 quadrants of the map and you have a late game scaling comp, that's fine. You just keep farming, you keep farming even, and you hopefully outscale late. But when you lose that 3rd quadrant, when you're just bleeding out camps, it becomes so impossible because the gold lead just extends incrementally, and that's what Cloud9's doing right here. And look at Rich.
Man, Rich is just not having fun against this Yone. Just 100 to 0s, blows him up. Jojo now uncontested in the bottom lane. It's a green light for the rest of C9 to go after the Baron on the other side of the map. They know that if Dignitas comes to try to stop them, first off, they probably win anyway. Second off, Jojo's just going to completely destroy bottom lane. Now Jojo makes his recall. He can teleport up here if the fight keeps going. Dove's going to get gunned down. Culling takes him down to about 15%. Berserker will be happy with that one as Jojo joins the fray. Baron still at about half HP as Fudge wants to be the interference that keeps Dignitas and eXyu specifically out of the pit. Tidal wave comes in, and now eXyu's going to be your target. The Baron secured by Blaber's smite as Jojo and Fudge are still looking to put more DPS into Dignitas health bars. They don't have to keep this one rolling any further. They just regroup back in mid, defend the tier 1 turret. They're up 8,500 gold. Dove flashes away to barely keep himself alive.
Yeah, nice little chunk there from Berserker, forcing out the flash from Dove. Already had him pretty lit up from the culling previous to that Baron take. But Cloud9 are just playing a really clinical game. Jojo, Fudge, Blaber got him in a good spot early on in the game, winning those fights on the top side. And it's just been kind of all aboard the Jojo train for the rest of the game. He has been playing it cool, calm, and collected in the side lanes. Cloud9 have not been getting caught when they are split from him, and Jojo has just been building out these incremental advantages in the side lane, culminating in that solo kill in bot lane, which leads to the easy Baron. And now Cloud9, 9K ahead, back-to-back dragons have been taken. If you couldn't answer him in the side lane before, you definitely cannot now, as he's got the IE and he's got that Baron buff.
It just feels like everything went crazy early on. Jojo getting jumped on. Solon bound to get himself back away. Blaber looking to put the pressure on Tomo as eXyu tries to get out. Jojo has to reset his position, but Rich wants to lock him down. Fudge is back over the wall, maybe looking for a flank angle. He decides to run in with a storm. He locks down Rich, but the damage on Tomo is enough. Berserker's got his first kill of the game, and Cloud9 makes it 2. Jojo's in a rampage, and Berserker ain't done. He dashes, he flashes, he takes out Sejuani for a double kill, and C9 is gonna walk it in from here.
All right, well, it's gonna be that's it. Is he him? Is he not him? What do you think?
I don't know, man. He just dashed straight into the enemy base, taking out the next one.
Maybe him?
It's all right.
Heading towards him?
He's trending in the right direction. He's still at about 200 HP here. Dove trying to defend. C9 ready to end. Dove just doing everything he might be able to do, but the problem is that's an anime character, man. Jojo's the protagonist, and C9 are gonna dunk him 11-2.
Cloud9 looking really dominant in this one. Jojo, monster performance on the Yone, but it was really all about Cloud9's top side. Fudge, Blaber, Jojo coordinating really well in the early game to win those fights out on the top side where they had to do it. That bought them the time. That got them the pressure in the side lane where Jojo was just unanswered. They bide their time. They wait for him to get pressure. He gets a solo kill on Rich. That leads to the Baron. And a clean close out there from Cloud9. Really well played. They can be happy about this one. That's now 3 straight wins for them, climbing up towards the top of the table where they want to be. Cloud9 looking like they're back.
A nice